Hi, folks. Robert Quigley here, Washington, D.C., the Money Pit Group. We're on the road to the White House. Today, we're going to do a couple of videos, highly topical to current times. The first one is going to be inflation and what all folks in society can be doing right now to solve the inflation problem. And then the second video I'm going to do is going to be titled The Breaking Point. More on that when we get to that video. First one, inflation. We don't need to explain what inflation is. Everybody can see it every time they buy something across society today. Like many things in life, the warning signs were given, the warning signs were not heeded. Now we are stuck with the consequences. This video is not going to cast rocks in that direction. This video is all about the solutions. So I'm going to run through a list of solutions. I could personally guarantee if most of these solutions are implemented, we would see inflation disappear in due haste. First one, we need to exclude speculators from the futures market. This is kind of a technical point in the finance world, but it's very simple. If we keep profiteers away from trading oil, the oil price will automatically fall. If we keep them out of the agricultural market, corn, soybeans, wheat, etc., all of the soft commodities, whether we're talking about cotton, whether we're talking about beef and pigs, you name it, anything in the agricultural sector does not need to be traded by speculators. Less folks in the market, the cheaper those prices are going to get. Simple as that. Same in the metals market. I mentioned this in a previous video, but the key point is we need to get rid of folks that are gouging the society, help gouge the society, and making it very, very difficult for many of us to make ends meet. There's no amount of profit that justifies fellow citizens or citizens of the world starving and going to bed without enough food in their tummies because someone wants to make a profit. So when I'm in the White House, one of the very first things we're going to do, if it doesn't happen before I get there, is there will be no more speculation. There will be no more speculators in the Chicago Board of Exchange future markets. Simple as that. The next thing that needs to happen is talked about all over the financial press. There's a kabuki dance that goes on. There's a song and dance that goes on. But obviously, interest rates need to be raised. And there's this dance between Wall Street and the Federal Reserve that plays out day in and day out. And it's all as if they're stepping and dancing on eggs, and they are afraid of stock prices going down or financial wizards losing money. Look, the bottom line is we need much higher interest rates. We basically doubled the size of the U.S. economy with free money during the pandemic, and I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying that as a fact. But now we need to slow it down big time. So interest rates must go higher. They must go higher quicker, and it's a little bit like needing a very serious heart operation. You know, if you go to the doctor and the doctor says, "Look, you need to fix the heart valve," or you're going to die, and there is no slow and easy, non-noticeable way to do it. You need to be on the operating table in the morning, and that's going to involve opening up your chest and fixing that heart valve, etc., etc. That's where we are on the interest rate front. It's time. It's time to get it done and to stop messing around the bush. And there is going to be pain. There's going to be suffering, and that's mostly going to be for the financial wizards of society. But hey, you know that is not as important as a long-term healthy economy. They ran up the market during the pandemic. The Wall Street made a huge amount of money. They've ripped Americans off left and right. The data is all there to see. And now if they got to pay a price because of higher interest rates, so be it. Okay, enough pontificating on that point. We do need to clamp down on consumption. It's very simple, and the easiest way to do this is a temporary consumption tax. You make the price of discretionary goods, not the necessary goods, but discretionary goods and services more expensive. We're going to get less of it. It's very simple economics, economics 101, tried and true. All right. The next thing, um, overall, as a society and a culture, and I've admired this. As many of you know who have listened to my videos, I lived in Asia for about 10 years. And I totally am enthusiastic about the Japanese style of minimalism. The Japanese set on a huge amount of savings, massive amounts of money, and they don't live their life consuming the latest widget and gadget. They have a minimalist type of lifestyle. It just so happens that the minimalist type of lifestyle keeps inflation really low. So for the inflation historians out there, they can chime in and tell us that there's been low inflation in Japan for, let me see, 10, 20, 30 some odd years. I mean, almost no inflation. In fact, they have the opposite problem. They want inflation, and maybe recently they've only got inflation after 30, 35 years. So there is something to be said about peace of mind, relaxation, a more secure, contented lifestyle. And that all involves what I call Japanese style minimalism. That topic can be elaborated on, but the title speaks for itself. All right, another thing that we need to do across America for a lot of different reasons is we need to reestablish a thriving cottage industry. And we're talking about production of a goods type of cottage industry. I mean, there's no reason in the world why some companies locally can't make the products that are consumed locally. I mean, we might not be talking about, automobiles and air conditioners. Those may be better made in, bigger centralized factories. But, all the sort of, the clothes and the shoes and the belts and, even wooden utensils, for example, woodwork type of things. I mean, so if you pull out the basic trades from the old days, like metal work, basic woodwork, basic leather work. Essentially, a cottage industry must be reestablished in the United States. Not only does it provide local jobs, not only does it keep the money from those products circulating locally, it winds up instilling a more traditional lifestyle where we're just not out mass consuming stuff because they're a buck or two from China. So we need to implement that. Okay, carrying on down my list here. I said this was going to be a short video, so I don't want to let it go on too long. We need to cut property taxes by 50%. And you're like, well, how in the world does that reduce consumption? Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make the cost of living as low as possible. We want a cheap lifestyle, but a quality lifestyle. The higher the property taxes go across America, the more difficult it is for people to pay those taxes, the more they have to work. We want less activity, not more activity. Now, the next thing I have on my list of things that we need to do to fight inflation is we're going to cut the property ownership tax. We're going to cut that tax in half, but we're going to increase by a factor of 50% or 100% the taxes on rental income. Why is that? We don't want a large rental class in the United States. As we talk right now, something around 40%, if not 45%, of the people in the country are renters. We want to eliminate that dreadful category. We want to create homeowners. This administration is not going to support landlords. It's just never going to happen. In fact, I'm going to, I guess right now I can throw in the point. One of the crazy, wacky things I'm going to put on the table is very simple. If you look back in the ancient history of humans, there have been a couple of times where the government of the day realized that there was too much debt across society. And what they simply did was they wiped out all debt. They chose a day and they said, okay, from that day forward, every single piece of debt in the society, whether it's government all the way down to the individual companies, partnerships, it doesn't matter, student loans, mortgages, whatever it is, just gets reset to zero. But I shouldn't say reset, canceled. So we are essentially starting over with the whole debt world, and we're going to eliminate debt across the board. Now, of course, when people hear this, I can hear the professional economists out there right now. This guy Quigley is a lunatic. He's bumped his head or something. Yeah, maybe, but sometimes crazy ideas are just the things that we need to solve problems. So what does that mean? Well, if you're renting an apartment someplace, uh, we're going to all of a sudden make you an owner. This is actually the next step in this logical process here. Not only are we going to eliminate the debt, but we are going to dispossess very large numbers of landlords, and we're going to say, okay, renters, I don't care if it's a commercial building or if it's a residential building, you own that, you're in that property, you're paying rent on that property, you are now the owner of that property. Please go to your local, your local real estate, your court real estate office, your government real estate deeds and liens and title office, and show them your lease or prove that you have lived there, verbally as a renter or an occupier, and they're going to issue you a deed, and the landlord is out of the loop. I mean, this whole idea that we're letting one group of folks live off the backs of folks who don't have property, it's from a different era. It's a different time. We have global warming, big changes coming to our society. We want folks settled down. We don't want them to have to go out and work their butts off every day to pay somebody else's mortgage. So we're going to eliminate the mortgages. We're going to eliminate the renters. We're going to create a much larger group of homeowners. As wacky as it sounds, it's food for thought. We need to figure out how we solve these problems. So we're still carrying along on the inflation front. We need to reshore production. I mean, there's no question about it. That can be a whole video in itself. Reshoring production, it does make things a little more expensive, which means that we're going to have a little less of them, but we need the full ability to control our own inflationary impulses in the United States. Let me give you some examples here from my personal life. What can we do to cut down on inflation? Take restaurants. Boy, there was a time in my life, a long time of my life, where I ate outside in one restaurant or another, one coffee shop or another, at least once a day, if not 2 or 3 times a day. And we're talking 2 decades, 3 decades. I mean, I have spent my fair share of money on restaurants. I've even owned a restaurant. My family have owned restaurants. So I understand. I understand what I'm saying here, but food's become too expensive, and really, Americans need to become better cooks. And I'm all for advocating. Sorry, restaurant owners, if you're going to be in the restaurant business, you need to be a top class restaurant. We don't need to have restaurants here, there, and everywhere, especially with these high food prices. It'd be very different if actually the cost of consuming that food in a restaurant was cheaper than what was happening at your house, but it's not. So I would cut restaurant expenses across the board. Another example, I was in Macy's a couple of weeks ago. I wanted to buy some new shirts because, unfortunately, as I've gotten older, the tummy's gotten bigger. And I used to be a medium guy, and now I'm large, but I probably should be thinking extra large, so I might be deceiving myself here. But anyways, I walked up to the cash register. I picked up 8 shirts, and I said I wanted maximum discounts across the board. And I made sure I picked shirts that I liked from racks that looked as though they were going to get a discount. So it wound up being like a $550 bill after they gave me all the discounts and that they possibly could. It came down to about, I don't know, $330, $325, something like that. So what I'm saying is when you go to the store, make sure you get your discounts. If you don't, I would just walk out. In fact, one guy before me did just that. He wanted something really badly, you could tell, but he wanted it at a cheaper price, and he was complaining that just 2 years ago that same shirt was selling for, I don't know how much it was, but it was substantially less because he was quite upset about it, and they wouldn't give him the discount, and he left. So I would definitely demand that. Walmart is not the store it used to be. I would encourage all citizens across America to shop at Walmart, especially if you're talking about basics of things. By the way, they're not paying me for any plug, but like most citizens, you know about the shopping environment, and you know about Walmart. So Walmart's a good place to buy good quality items. Um, Let me give you some other ideas that we can put on the table to help reduce inflation. Carpooling. Who in the world wants to pay these outrageous gas prices? This is nutso. If you got to go outside, even if it's going to the grocery store, get with your neighbors, your family, carpool it. Work from home. That these are obvious no-brainer issues. Here's one that'll knock the socks off of everybody. Do we realize that for the vast majority of human history, every household was a 2 or 3 generation household? It's only been in the post World War II era where America has turned the house into a single generation household, or single generation with young kids. So basically, between 1 and 2 generation household. It used to be a 3 generation household without doubt, and very often it was a 4 generation household. We need to get back to the traditional roots, and this does a lot for us because what it does is it provides a bigger support network. So number one, you get to spread the bills further across the house. You get to share the kid rearing duties across the 3 or 4 generations of the family. And believe me, when you get to be grandparent age, you actually look forward to your grandkids, or at least most of us do. So we need to think about the traditional forms of organization in terms of the house. We've got to increase the number of EVs, electric vehicles. That speaks for itself. Just Google Elon Musk or Ford Electric, or whatever. We understand. We can't use as much gas. It's got to be electric. We need to cut back the 5-day work week and make it a 4-day work week. If the benchmark is 40 hours per week, it's very easily to do 10 hours a day. The cost of doing 8 hours a day and stretching it over 5 days is a problem. It's a super problem. And it's just creating so much more transportation, so many more bills outside the house, and people need another day just to take it easy. I would consider early retirement. No question about it. And that's, in fact, what's happened since the pandemic started. Millions upon millions of folks have retired early and are never going back to the workforce. I know this because my family, we own, uh, uh, we have owned retail stores. We still own a production and distribution business. And we have a list of retail store owners across the country that are our customers. And 80% of them retired, and the 20% that remain, most of those have cut back drastically. The other big thing I would do in terms of inflation, I would encourage everybody to leave the big cities. Big cities are expensive. They've got huge tax rates. They've got lots of hassle. You want nice, peaceful, calm, quiet lives. You want cheap lives. You don't want land prices, which requires 20, 30, 40 years of work. The big cities is not where it's happening anymore. If I were you guys, get out of the big cities. I mean, believe me, I think about this every minute of every day, but I'm kind of stuck in Washington, D.C. at the moment because I own my house. I've got property out the river, but there's going to come a day when I'm out of D.C. too, and anybody here who's been around DC knows DC is just a problem in terms of overpopulation. So essentially, we're going to dial down the pace of economic activity. This is what fighting inflation is all about in a nutshell. Let's reduce the amount of activity. Let's reduce the amount of money we're spending. Let's save for a brighter day. Let's buy things in a smarter way. Let's live in a more rational way. And that will take care of inflation in a heartbeat. And in addition to that, I'm just going to finish up this video with a comment that, we have seen for the last 100, put it this way, in living memory. Let's use that. Let's use that description. We've seen in every one of our political elections, whether we're talking midterms or the presidential elections, they can simply be described as a battle for the status quo. Well, guys, the status quo is not working anymore. We need folks with new ideas coming to the table. We don't need group politics. That has done us a huge disservice. We don't need entrenched interest groups battling to keep a hold of their little piece of the American pie. We're in trouble, guys. The society's in trouble. The world's in trouble, and there are ways to solve the problem, but battles for the status quo are not going to get us anywhere. It's actually going to lead to our demise. So with that, subscribe to the channel, add your comments below, join the conversation, tell me where I'm right, tell me where I'm wrong, tell me where my ideas can be made better, share them with your friends and family, and until we meet again,